Welcome back to the live stream. Today we're going to be covering specialization and trade. I'm going to channel my inner Adam Smith. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. We're also going to cover some other things. My Twitter or X, always active. It's going to be fun. Stay tuned.
You are now relearning economics.
Yo. Welcome back to the live stream, reacting to economic videos. I found a series of videos, and it's basically Econ 101. I saw them years ago, like a lot of years ago, and I probably watched through most of them. And it gives you the basic concept of economics. And I decided, okay, these are videos that I gotta go through. I think they're like 10 minutes each. And I think one of the biggest problems in economics is its foundations, right? Where we start from, right? So right when you enter it, and let's say your first year undergrad, the concepts, most of them, a great deal of them are fraudulent. And I think it's a good place to kind of react to those. But some, conceptually, are all right. And today, this is going to be kind of one of those either or. I don't know exactly. I can't recall how the video goes. But I'm indifferent to the, and we might be getting into difference curves and, consumption curves and production possibility curves. I'm indifferent to those. Conceptually, they're correct. But how do you scale that into a model? How do you scale that into a microeconomic model, right? How do you scale that into a macroeconomic model? Do those concepts hold up? Or do they serve relevance when you apply it to a larger model? And that'll be kind of a question today, and we'll kind of dig deep into it. Maybe we'll do a little Minsky model just to kind of show how they could be scaled up into a working model, or how if they're scaled up into a working model, they just give you back gibberish. You know the rules. You can hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. So I've got analytics in my YouTube studio, and it says like 5% of the people that watch these live streams have hit the notification bell. So make sure you hit that. Leave comments. Lots of people are doing that after the live streams. That's really good. I try to answer them all. So keep doing that. That really, really helps. Let's watch this video. You know me, I'm going to jump in and out, and we'll examine this.
Times trot with truly unintelligible vocabulary that's difficult for us regular people to understand.
But it doesn't have to be that complicated. Remember, economics is the study of scarcity and choices. We have limited resources, so we need a way to analyze the best way.
So the age-old scarcity and choices in economics, nobody can deny that, right? There are trade-offs, and I try to explain this, to all my followers and subscribers, maybe the more progressive ones out there, that we do face trade-offs, right? So if we want that, utopia of, good human health and well-being, there are trade-offs to that. Nothing's going to be perfect. So it's always important to remember that is fundamental to economics. So if somebody says describe economics, well, it's a series of trade-offs, right? Or it's the age-old battle of scarcity, right? Our human wants are unlimited, but there are limited resources.
To use them. We need economics to make wise decisions in the future, but it also helps us understand the past.
Most empires, wars, and human endeavors can be explained using economics. All you have to understand is who wanted what. The American Civil War wasn't just about freedom. It was fought because southern states wanted to keep using cheap slave labor. It was economics.
Econ can explain so much about the world, and that's why we love teaching it. And that's what makes it the greatest subject of all time.
Take that, physics. We're coming for you.
Oh, wow. I always get envious of these graphics that people do. I used to do that when we were running the Steve Keen and Friends show. on Steve Keen's YouTube channel. I had a big intro and stuff, and they got better and better and bigger and bigger. But I realized on YouTube, they don't, people generally don't want to sit through a big TV intro. So I've kind of limited that, but I always like the artistic work of it. If you're in a chat, say hello.
Let's stick with this history theme and talk about the progress of humanity throughout the ages. Using measurements like life expectancy, child mortality, and income per capita, we can show the majority of humans that ever lived had terrible lives. Statistically speaking, it wasn't until the Industrial Revolution that people saw a significant and sustained increase in their standard of living. Population skyrocketed, but so did life.
It's always important to differentiate the difference between a material standard of living and quality of life, right? We look at that in the Limits to Growth publication. There is a distinct difference, your happiness and, all the material junk that you can get. And it's true. From a material standard of living perspective, even today's, low end, medium income people are living like kings of the 1500s, let's say. So that is a true statement.
In food supplies and hospitals, and eventually toilets and refrigerators.
It was in the beginning of the industrial.
Toilets. Dr. T, I'm dealing with a big issue on social media. Well, we'll definitely provide some therapy for you after this, reaction video that I do. It's not too long. We got to figure out what specialization in trade is. Or will we? The video is not going.
The beginning of the Industrial Revolution that Adam Smith, the first modern economist, wrote his book, An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations, or Antikuntunkawan. He wasn't great at naming books, but he was really good at explaining the source of prosperity. Smith concluded that it was specialization, what he called the division of labor, that made countries wealthy. Let's go to the thought bubble.
When I think of specialization, I think of a pizza restaurant where different workers have specific tasks like preparing the ingredients, making the pizza, putting it in the oven.
So they're doing the whole specialization thing, and nobody can deny that. I agree with it. I know everybody knows me as the guy that really, disagrees with a lot of conventional economics, but it is true. On like factory, you look at the Model T and the success of the Model T in the 1920s, right after World War II, or World War I, pardon me. That could never be done without, individual workers working at different units along the line and specializing in one specific task, right? It's not that humans got smarter, we got more efficient, and we divided the work more.
It out and putting it in the box. This division of labor makes each worker more productive since they can each focus on the thing they do best. And they don't waste time switching between jobs. But specialization goes beyond the assembly line for pizza. To produce the cheese, there was a dairy farmer who specialized in raising cows. The oven was designed and manufactured by people who specialize in engineering ovens. The friendly mustache guy in the pizza box, someone had to stamp him on there. I love that guy.
It's funny, the oven's engineered by engineers, right? So engineers are like, we've got to build this, and economists generally are like the ones, well, we've got to figure out what this problem is. It's kind of funny, kind of hierarching engineers above economists.
That guy. Adam Smith observed, in every improved society, the farmer is generally nothing but a farmer. The manufacturer, nothing but a manufacturer. The labor necessary to produce any one complete manufacture is almost always divided among a great number of hands. Imagine what it would be like to make a pizza completely on your own, from scratch. You would have to grow the wheat and tomatoes and raise the cow.
I have. You can ask my wife. Okay, so I didn't grow the wheat. Okay, so I didn't do any of the farming. I didn't till the soil. I didn't grow the vegetables. I didn't grow the wheat, but I did, like, you get the flour. I made my own dough. I cut the tomatoes, right? Pasted the tomatoes and then cut all my other toppings. So I have done it. It's extremely hard and time intensive, and I don't like doing it. I won't ever do it again. But my wife does like it when I do things like that. I make a mean spaghetti from scratch. But then again, is it really from scratch if you're not growing the food? It's true. Division of labor.
Make the flour, the cheese, the oven, the pan, and then draw the mustache guy on the box. Without specialization, if you want something, you have to make it yourself. And for thousands of years of human history, specialization was, well, pretty minimal. Of course, humans specialized prior to the Industrial Revolution. It's one of the marks of civilization that we mentioned in our World History series. But the modern era has taken this to the extreme. Think of how many people from how many different specialized fields it takes to make a smartphone.
A smartphone. That's, again, kind of goes back to our material standard of junk instead of living junk. Right, we have so much now, and this is one of the, debates I often have with people. And I know a few other people agree with me. There is definitely an inequality in income in our current society, but that's existed throughout history. The strong survive and, the weak die kind of attitude, and that's prevalent in capitalism. It's just glossed over with terminology. But there's also the other argument that we do, even like low income people, they have the material standard of kings of the 1500s. There is a drive of consumption. And if we weren't so driven by these cell phones and all these gadgets and all these conveniences that don't really make our lives that much more convenient and sometimes even stress us out. So now we're losing our quality of life. You would have some other kind of wealth or a wealth buffer, you could say, some sort of cash balance, or maybe you're investing in something, buying stocks, right? Or waiting for your stocks to be bought back by corporations. Ooh, right? So there is an argument, and this isn't the individual consumer's fault because we live in a society of consumerism. But there is an argument to be made that we consume a lot more junk than we necessarily need to if we just focused our consumption on like sustenance and food and some sort of general happiness, or just spending time with the family. That we would kind of tackle some of that inequality, and that buffer of wealth would actually we'd then be as like, I'm not rich, right? I'm doing okay, but I'm not rich. We would be doing, we would have the ability to get into financial markets and stuff because we're not, buying phones and all these other gadgets.
My super profound thoughts. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So
Thanks, Thought Bubble.
Productive. But Adam Smith said that it's trade that makes them better off. Assume that John can produce either pizza or t-shirts. If he's way better at producing pizza, then he should specialize in making pizza and then trade with someone else like Hank, who's way better at making t-shirts. Everyone knows Hank's better at making t-shirts, right? With trade, each of them can end up with more pizza and shirts than if they tried to make them on their own. To fully explain this idea of the benefits of trade, we need to show you an economic model. But before we go any further, know that economists geek out over models and graphs.
Economists have physics envy, right? Some of the models in the papers I read. So this is something that passed my mind, and it's passed through my mind many times, I guess, is, economists do, like when you go do an economics degree, you do get taught some math, and you do sit in front of some mathematicians, right? And you learn how to math, but your application of that math is taught by an economics professor. And that's where things become a kind of messed up. You can learn good math, and you can the way you apply that math can be problematic, and the way it's applied in conventional economics with your general equilibrium models is definitely problematic because that's not the way the world operates. But if you take engineers or physicists, the way they apply math, they're applying it to real world systems, right? And they're applying it to a much higher degree. And so I always kind of wish that, engineering and physics would take a more prominent role in your second, third year, fourth year of your undergrad in economics.
Get all worked up about the numbers. They're not that complicated. Models are just visuals to help us simplify and explain concepts. It's time for the model. So let's go to the runway.
Now, this is the first graph you'll see in an economic.
This is where I do my thumbnail? Is this eye big enough? I got it. I like it. So the production possibilities frontier. So this is a curve we're about to do. They're going to explain it. Now, I got my problems, and then I don't have my problems with it. I'll go with the problems I don't have. It accurately kind of displays if you have you're a producer and you've got a plant and you can produce one of two things, A or B, that you can go along that curve, right? And so if you produce more of product A, you can't produce as much product B. And then you can have two of those curves with two separate producers or two different nations, right? And you can see their, which one has the comparative advantage. And I'm sure they'll get into all that. And that on the surface is correct. Now, the next problem is when you add a bunch of different processes. So what if they can produce on one day a bunch of product A on the A axis and then a bunch of product Z on the next day on the Y axis, and then on the X axis on day 3 they can produce a bunch of product X, right? That probability curve just becomes like a squiggle, right? And so how does that really, work out? Like in like the simplistic form, it works out fine. And now the conventional economists will say, yeah, it gets a little bit messy when you add a bunch more products, but still this concept scales up. And that's problematic because it doesn't when you start getting into nonlinearities. And we'll build a little Minsky model. And we'll just kind of show what one of these functions do in a full-size kind of model, a nonlinear model, just kind of see. But what's the biggest thing missing from this right now? There's a big thing. We got some chatters now. We're still kind of rolling in people, but there's a big thing missing, and missing in a lot of economic graphs. You've got two axes, two dimensions, and basically they're products on either axis. Anybody know? Time. Okay. So time, how does time influence that curve? If you could put a third dimension in there, how would that curve look? And does that curve make sense once you do that? All right. If you don't have time, you don't have a system, right? You just have a static snapshot of a two-dimensional logical thought, right? Can you scale that up? Anyways, let's see what they say about it.
Textbook. It's called the Production Possibilities Frontier, or PPF. The PPF shows the different combinations of two goods being produced using all resources efficiently. Now here's a made-up example. If the United States uses all of its workers and factories to produce airplanes, it can produce 500 per day, but it can't produce any shoes. Now if they use all their resources to produce shoes, they can produce 1,000 tons per day.
That's a big problem in the United States, right there. They are the world's superpower and economic superpower, and they are, they got a hard choice between planes or shoes.
Per day, but they can't produce any planes. Now, because the United States has limited resources, they can't produce any combination beyond the production possibilities frontier. So it's impossible to produce 500 planes and 1,000 tons of shoes.
Wait, Mr. Clifford, I want to stop you here for a second. We don't live in a world where there are only two things that a country can produce. There are like a million things that U.S. workers can choose.
How you doing, Rob? Rob is right up in the big time world of complex systems and systems thinking. Glad you're here, Rob.
Make toilet paper zippers, adorable stuffed kitty cats holding heart, artisanal sauerkraut. We don't live in a world of just
Okay, so this is good. This is where the conventional economist will, elucidate. Gonna start using big words today. She'll explain that, yeah, we know that we don't live in a world of two products, but we can jibber jab our way out of this problem. Let's see what she says.
The real world value of the production possibilities frontier.
The idea is once you really understand that there's trade-offs between producing two goods, that same logic applies to any number of.
No. So if you're a complex system scientist or you're an engineer or you're a physicist, you know that you cannot construct macro systems from micro foundations. Economists try to do this. They're the only field that does do this. I recommend everybody goes and reads a paper by Philip Anderson in 1973, and it's about this very topic, about how you can't construct. You don't build an arm out of separate atoms and build up the arm, right? You can easily deconstruct the macro to see what the micro is, but that doesn't necessarily mean that then you must construct from micro foundations.
Additional goods makes it more complex, but doesn't really add any more insights. So economists usually stick with just two goods. Now, what if American companies mismanage their resources and tried to produce planes and shoe factories and shoes and plane factories? Well, they'd be at a point inside the production possibilities front.
What are we still missing from this graph? Time. We have no time. They're talking about static snapshots. So they're like, we'll set this up. Now you can mathematically write this equation out. Everything you see on that graph, you can just do a simple equation and get to it, right? And solve it analytically. But when you involve time, things become a lot more complex, and you can't just solve for some equilibrium. You can't do that. You can numerically estimate your system and see the emergent behaviors, but this is just a static snapshot. I still couldn't take this and go even into a business and say, this is where we got to do. This is the optimal path, because time is exactly the same forever. We're in this infinite point of equilibrium.
Use of resources. So every possible combination inside the curve is inefficient, and on the curve is efficient, and outside the curve is impossible. Now let's compare this PPF to China's. China can produce 100 planes per day or 800 tons of shoes. Since the United
Again, this is the part where I'm okay with this. Now, depending on how it's taught in your first year undergrad, it could be fine as an initial concept for a function, right? A function is just a valve in a model, right? It's just sits in there with the emergent behavior that comes out of like one of these curves. And of course, we have to acknowledge that this curve isn't realistic to any economy, because it's just two products. And then now they're comparing it with another economy that has just two products that are the exact same. It's how you apply these curves, which I call functions, because they are just a function, a behavioral function inside of a model. You got to apply that to a model to see. So depending on how it's conceptually, given to the student, really matters, right? If you're just doing what they're doing right now, this probably wouldn't be a good introductory class, in my opinion. In my opinion, your first year in an econ class should be far more advanced than it actually is, right? Because technically this is grade 8 stuff, like your 8th year of school kind of stuff. It's not, university levels thinking, but this is provided in the first year econ 101 textbooks.
Since the United States can produce more planes than China, they have an absolute advantage in the production of planes. The US also has an absolute advantage in the production of shoes. Since the US can produce more of both goods, you might think there's no reason to trade, but they should just produce both on their own. Well, no, remember, specialization in trade makes people, and in this case, countries, better off. Now stick with me. Let's calculate the opportunity cost for the United States to produce one plane. Every single time they produce an additional plane, it costs them 2 tons of shoes. China, on the other hand, gives up 8 tons of shoes for each plane they produce. And since the US has a lower opportunity cost, they have what's called a comparative advantage. China has a comparative advantage in the production of shoes. But here's the best part. If the US specializes in planes, they can import shoes from China at a lower opportunity cost than if they produce shoes themselves. For example, if these two countries make a deal to trade one plane for 4 tons of shoes, the US would be better off. They would rather get 4 tons of shoes per plane from China than only get 2 tons of shoes per plane by making shoes on their own. Now, China is also better off. They would rather trade 4 tons of shoes for a plane than
So again, with time, your nation's production, possibility frontier changes, right? So it depends on the business cycle, and it depends on all the other products in the economy. It depends on profits, and it depends on employment, right? It depends on your capital output ratio. It depends on how much of your capital is being utilized, right? There's so many things that influence that curve. So beyond this curve is really the true explanations, right? And this is just a foundational thing, and this is where I agree. Like, it's a concept, but that's all it is. It can't be scaled up, in my opinion. we'll look at it in a Minsky model, not the specific function, but just a function and how that function behaves over time.
8 tons of shoes for producing a plane on their own. Now, hopefully your head isn't spinning. Being able to do these calculations is good, but it's more important to understand the main idea. Individuals and countries should...
My head is spinning right now. Like it's like the, what's that movie? The Exorcist? It's just, that's what it's doing, right? At least inside of my brain is doing that. My head is static, just like their graph. But inside, my brain is doing circles and non-linear circles. So ellipticals sometimes and circles the other times and at different speeds. You could say it's chaotic.
Countries should specialize in producing things in which they have a comparative advantage, and then trade with other countries that specialize in something else. This trade is mutually beneficial. Now that's the production possibilities frontier. In the real world, it's way more complicated than the simplified model, and we're only in the beginning.
So this graph is super simplified, but the idea that countries should focus on producing the products for which they are better suited is huge. Way huge. In reality, the US is the world's leading manufacturer and exporter of airplanes. It produces more than 40% of all planes. At the same time, the US produces less than 2% of the world's shoes, electing instead to import them from countries in Asia. The graphs aren't real, but the concepts are. Another reason you should learn this is because you might hear a politician or someone on the news argue that international trade destroys domestic jobs. And even though it may seem counterintuitive, economists for centuries have argued.
So this is the big MMT, slogan, that imports are a benefit and exports are a cost. I don't particularly like that slogan myself. I think it's as limited as that production possibility graph there. A very basic concept. Exporters are in business to make profits, and if they have international clients are obviously going to do that. On the flip side of it, like importers, maybe I said importers first, exporters want to do it for a profit. Importers, it gets a little more complicated because if you're importing a capital good equipment piece, right, for your own production, there's that, right? And then there's the aspect where M&T says, why do we want to give our resources away? That's a cost to us, like a real material cost. And when we could keep those, right? So we can just get pieces of paper for those things, right? But it's not one's good or one's bad. It's just part of international trade. And this is where this, these curves can tell you these things like from a very base level, logical base level thing about comparative advantage and stuff. But ultimately, bottom line at the end of the day, and I try to tell this to all my followers, and people get mad, is businesses are in it for profits. That is the motive. Banks, financial firms, productive firms, they're all in it for profits. At the end of the day, that's their base case, all right? So if they're exporting because they see a profit motive in it, if they're not exporting, that means they don't see a profit motive in it, right? And that goes for anybody on either side of the country, either nation, right?
Trade is mutually beneficial to whoever's trading. Now you know why. Now, to be fair, there are all sorts of other intolerable issues associated with international trade, like child labor, dangerous working conditions, and pollution. And we promised.
And I'm going to cover that future video.
There's one point on which most economists agree. It's that specialization in trade makes the world better off. No country in recent decades has achieved sustained improvement.
So just to broaden this, so we had the pizza example, where, individual people are, one person's putting the pepperoni pieces on the pizza and one person's putting the peppers on the pizza. One person's, flipping the dough, and, one person's shoving it in the oven, right? You scale that up to countries, right? One country's doing this, another country's doing this, right? And this is and this is like fundamentally true. The question is where I get in, really, my head gets twisted in a knot, not because I don't understand it, because I just think it's too simplified, is these curves drive economic models and they're driven in into general equilibrium, right? And that's where I just don't believe that crap.
without open trade with the rest of the world. Countries like Cuba, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, and Iran that are voluntarily or involuntarily cut off from the world remain less economically developed than they could be. On the other hand, countries that have opened their doors to trade, like Japan and Taiwan, or more recently China and India, have seen massive improvements in their standards of living.
Adam Smith was onto something. Self-sufficiency is inefficiency.
Adam's channeling my Adam Smith, the division of labor. Yeah, excellent. It's funny though. It's funny though if you think about it. The division of labor is all about scaling up things, but it doesn't necessarily mean innovation comes from the division of labor. Like everything I'm doing now is basically content creation and getting my Patreon up and going and supplying an income. I do it all myself. Right? I don't have a secretary. I would like a secretary, but I would like a volunteer secretary. You can post your volunteer resume in the comments after the show. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.
And inefficiency can lead to poverty.
Next time, we'll show you how some of these ideas get turned into economic systems and how these systems contribute to the differences between countries.
So that's about the end of the video. Now I can just show you how we can turn this into a system, at least a basic system. And we'll have to do it with a Ravel model. Bring up Ravel here, run it. You know, Ravel's pretty intense. I might get a little choppy here. Just stand by. And we'll bring up the chat. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Hello, everybody. I've been watching your comments throughout the little video we did, our little reaction video to specialization in international trade. I got a whole series, those guys. And some videos like that, I don't have much to disagree with. I'm not gonna sit there and hate on something where there is insights to be gained. But I will nuance it that these foundations, if they're not like flushed out enough, get pushed up second year, third year, fourth year. Next thing you know, you got master's students who say, well, we have a lot more insights to that possibility curve than you could ever imagine. But meanwhile, it's still based on that curve. Or you get to the PhD. Oh, we have very advanced textbooks that go far beyond the initial production possibilities frontier curve that you saw in your first year. But let's just kind of play this out, right? And where I was saying, okay, these individual curves, which I will call functions, right, do serve a purpose. But you got to understand when you just move the dot along that curve and you got your answer without time, it becomes a little bit problematic, don't you think? So I'll bring up, close, let's, everybody, yeah, too, hi. So we got a Dr. T in the house. Dr. T will talk about your problem. You got a social media problem. I did see some of your shorts, your YouTube shorts, so we'll discuss your problem. We'll help you. Frank's in the house. Good to see you, Frank. We've got Rob. Rob's in the house. Good to see Rob. It's a slow day. Stephanie Zazi, Patreon member, in the house. I'm sorry. The suspense was incredible, wasn't it? It's incredibly hard to go through. Let's bring up the model. So we'll share. We don't want to do that. I want to bring up the entire screen. We're going to get the infinite screen of death here. And we'll just kind of maximize this. And so we can build a quick little function. Let's say it's a wage change function, and we'll make it linear. Like I can do a fancy equation, but I won't. I'm not gonna do that. So we'll create. So we'll make an exogenous parameter. Let's say it's the employment ratio. Employment ratio. This is just the amount of people that are employed in the economy. And we'll make it so we can adjust it ourselves. We'll start at 50. And we'll have it from 0 to 1. And we'll change it in increments of 0.01. And we'll have a slope function. So we'll just call this slope. So this is going to be kind of our like the steepness of our slope. We'll just say it's 10. And then we'll have the intersect of this slope. So like an equilibrium kind of point where if the employment ratio is so much, then, there'll be no wage change. Basically, we're making a wage multiplier out of this function. So we'll say equilibrium. And we'll change that into a parameter. And we'll say the equilibrium point is 0.65, let's say. Okay, so now we've made a little, curve on a graph. And we'll throw this, so we're multiplying it by the slope minus the equilibrium point. So it's actually the employment ratio minus the equilibrium point times the slope equals the wage, call it the wage multiplier. So this would then multiply like a stock, a level of average wages. Then graph this out. And we'll grab, I think we'll want to copy this, put this on the x-axis, and we'll put the wage multiplier on the y-axis. And if we run this, you can see we get a slope. And see where we are now. My equilibrium point was 65%, and I'm at 65% in my employment ratio, and we're at the zero intersect there, so equilibrium. And then we just keep running this. Get a linear line. Now we could make this an exponential, that's fine, but for the point of illustration, okay, we have a concept. And depending on where we are, if we want more employment, that means we have to pay more wages. If we want less employment, we want to pay less wages. This is the same concept as I did on that graph. But this in alone isn't really much of a model to me. It's a function in a model. What if I were to build this out into a model and actually, so what they're saying is, well, if I just pick, more employment, I have to pay more wages. But that's like telling the person in the student class, well, simple, whip-de-doo, we can just pick, the employment ratio, and we'll know exactly what our rate of expansion is in wages. But of course, there's a whole system behind that that's actually endogenously choosing where that curve goes, right? So we just kind of build that out quickly here. And let's say we've got a wage level, which is the stock. So we go like that, and we'll say its initial value is 1. Great. Okay, we're going to multiply that against our multiplier. And we'll integrate it back into it so it's self-reinforcing. Okay, great. That's great, but there's more parts to the system, isn't there? Let's delete this. And we don't need that copy anymore. There's more parts to the system. We kind of have to build it out. So let's bring in, another system state here. So we'll call this fixed capital. So this is like machines and stuff, that firms have to produce output. And we'll say its initial value is 300. Right? Okay. And let's say we have some undefined, capital, we'll capitalize this, capital output ratio. I don't know. Whatever kind of formatting you want here. In dynamic systems, at least in system dynamics, I always say that your constants or parameters should be capitalized. Your stock should have a starting capital level, and your flows and auxiliaries should all be lowercase. And we'll say that it's 3. Okay. And so this is we're going to divide capital stock with the capital output ratio. And it's saying that basically every 3 years it can produce what this is. So this first year output, firm output, will be 100. And of course, you need to know what employment is to get to this employment ratio. Okay, fair enough. And we need some productivity variable. And we could have a growing productivity, or for this simple model, we'll just make it a constant. So let's make it a constant. So productivity, spell it right. Try my best here. Try my best on the fly. And we'll just say that it's even to 1. So for every unit of output, you need 1, unit of worker. Now, if that changes over time, there's some new dynamics there. But for simplicity, we'll keep it simple. And this means you've got your labor. Labor, we'll spell it the American way without the U. Sorry for our UK viewers. So now you got your labor. Can divide output by your productivity. It gives you labor. And of course, it's going to be 100. Pretty simplified here. Well, then you want to find out what that employment ratio is. Okay, we can do that. We can do that, but we're going to need a population level. So let's say we'll just have we got to have a growing population, but let's just say we have a constant level of population. So this will be worker population. The amount of workers available to go to work. And it's constant parameter. We'll say it's 150. And again, we're just going to divide that to get a ratio. Looking good so far. And we're going to change this into a flow. So we can edit it. Just going to change that into a flow. Now we can wire this in. So now it is a dynamic variable. It's not a constant anymore, the employment ratio. Now the model's controlling it endogenously. So far we got a good looking model going on. Now we want to find out our wage bill for the economy. We can just take a copy of labor, multiply it with the wage level. Now we know the total wage bill for the economy. We can call this wage bill. So far, so good. So the wage bill is a cost for the firm. The firm will assume that all production is consumed. Simplifying assumption, obviously. So now we can find out what profits is. Of course, a firm would have many other costs, right? This is a very simple, class structure model. So this will be profits. So now we know what the profits are. And again, we'll make another simplifying assumption that all profits are invested. And we'll make another assumption that there's no depreciation. So we got investment. And investments just simply integrate it into the capital stock. And you can wire these up. I could pull, I don't have to do this, but we'll just complete the loop this way. Right? So this is your little, cyclical model here. It's a Goodwin growth cycle model. Now, remember our initial slope. It was just a simple line, and it was a choice. You want higher employment, it means you got higher wages, higher growth in wages. Or if you want lower employment, there doesn't need to be as many wages. Tickety-boo, models over. But obviously, there is a lot more dynamics to it. So if we look at it, that simple linear line becomes something nonlinear. So we look at our wage change. Run the model, and you get nonlinear dynamics. Right? So this is what I was saying in the video. Even in the first year, it has to be at least taken to this level. Now, if you're using a production possibility frontier function, as I called it, which is this right here, if you're just using that, then you need to build something simple like this to see how it's actually applied in a model. And it shouldn't be a damn general equilibrium model. That's the worst thing you could do. Absolute worst trash thing you could do. Let's turn off my sharing here. Cancel. I'd like to turn it off. Stop sharing. So that's what you gotta kind of do. And that's, the bones I have to pick with economics is that stuff there. It should be like your first week in economics, nonlinear dynamics and modeling in that method, modeling with time. Like it should be that way. But it's not. And it is what it is. Now, Dr. T, what's your problem on social media? What's going on there? Let us know in the chat. I'd like to know. I can solve with my 10,000 X followers. Maybe we can solve it for you. Is it a X problem? Is it a YouTube problem? Curious to know. And this question is interesting. Does it work in 3D space? So, like, you mean, can I plot it? I couldn't in Ravel. But I could just export the CSV data and just put it in plotting software, and you can plot it time and space, right? And you can do like your little tornado 3D graphs and stuff like that. Hopefully, Steve and Russell do that eventually, so you can have your limit 3D limit cycle graphs or 3D phase plot graphs. That would be really, really handy. Ty, does this broadly agree with Steve Keen stuff? Ty, does this broadly agree with stuff Steve Keen does? Yes, it does. If not, can you give me the why not explanation for us numbskulls? Yeah, nobody's a numbskull. You are definitely not a numbskull. And yeah, this is where, like, Steve as my mentor, right? So this is, building up his concepts into massive models, right? He's done the theoretical work. I've done the actual applied real world work. So no, he's completely complementary to Steve's work. But I really want to know your social media problem, because I got some problems on social media. Like, so I was having a little tuffle. Let's bring it up. Bring up my Twitter and bookmarks. So every time I do this, I always get some trolls. I'll share the window tab, Chrome tab. There we go. And we'll make it big. And we'll pull down. my little graphic because we know. So basically, I'd kind of gotten into a little back and forth with Richard, a guy named Richard Warner. Does a lot of great work on endogenous money, how commercial banks create money, create deposits. But then on the flip side, he does a terrible job at stuff on central banking, even though he worked with the Bank of Japan and kind of was one of the fathers of quantitative easing. But anyways, I had critiqued him, and of course, so I put, I critiqued Richard's postulate on the boom bust cycle was increasingly caused by central bank activity. He replied with some tin hat explanation that COVID-19 was a hoax. And this really bothers me. Like, so one of my breakthrough models, here's an example. I don't reply to stupid shit, but I try. If you guys hit me up on X, I get so much stupid shit sent to me that it's hard to really wade through, right? People literally believe COVID-19 and the pandemic was a hoax. That is simply not the case. My first breakthrough model was modeling the pandemic in British Columbia, Canada, right? So I waded through a lot of initial research, and I can trust you that the pandemic was a real thing. I can say that governments did not know how to react to the pandemic. They had lockdown measures, but they were flying by the seat of their pants. And depending on how the government's structured, right? So you got your federal government, then you got provinces underneath, and the states, obviously federal and then state. They all have their different policies, right? And essentially, lockdowns were restrictive to people's liberties. And when you restrict a person's liberties in a prax, so where we live now, we haven't had a world war, since 1945. We've had it really good in a lot of ways. We have inequality, but I'll tell you, we generally have it really good, and compared to some third world countries. And so when your liberties are stripped away, it's a breeding ground for conspiracy theories. And I just can't stand it. COVID happened, right? Were the initial studies, off? Yeah, of course. We're flying by the seat of our pants. But people died. People have long COVID. Dr. T knows this, right? I had 2 family members die of COVID, right? I can't recall when somebody else died of the flu. People die of the flu, right? And there's all these conspiracies. Well, there was no flu that year, so it's just another flu, right? Now, one, we could have not been tracking the data. We'll never know. Or maybe people were doing the lockdown procedures, which prevented the spread of the flu season, the normal flu season, and it came back after the pandemic. But that's not some like government conspiracy that they fabricated everything. People were dying en masses. Do you not remember the opening days during COVID, where in New York they were burying everybody on an island? They just didn't know what to do, right? They didn't know how infectious it was. Did the media sensationalize things? Sure, but scientists did not. Right, so that's the type of shit that I face on social media. It just drives me mad. Absolutely drives me mad. So I've got problems, Dr. T, on social media. What are your problems on social media? Ed Balls. Now, who was posted? Did I see you, Rob, posted? Oh, no, this was Dr. T's short, wasn't it? Ed Balls. He supports Norwich City. Boo! So Dr. T says, my dad has had COVID again, and I've had to mask at home 10 days. If I get it again, I may die. Yeah, you could. So I've had it 3 times. So this is my story. And because my wife's a hospital worker, she generally has brought it home to me each time. The first time, it was pretty intense. It was the worst kind of cold cough I ever had in my life, and I was down for 7 days. 4 days, it was intensely uncomfortable. I got it the second time. I'm not too sure if it was a different strain, and it was less intense. So it might have been some sort of variant, but I developed some immunity. Then I got it the third time, and it was about the same as the second time. Then I haven't got it since. And we still look at like the sewage samples here in our region, and it's still prevalent in the community. So is there some sort of, herd immunity? So early, one of the first substantial studies I found when I was creating my model for COVID-19, back, in late 2020 when I started creating it, was a study out of Italy in an isolated village of 3,000 people. And so they were able to test everybody, and they found that 43% of the people that were infected didn't show. They were asymptomatic, right? So the human body, each individual is quite resilient. And so it was quite amazing. And this is where the conspiracy theories come from, because if you're not affected by it, it must be a conspiracy. But people have different immunity levels, right? People will, like, psychologically feel symptoms differently. So one person might be showing some symptoms, but they're really tough and rough and tough, right? And so it's maybe they just got a headache, right? They don't display, the traditional COVID symptoms. But that was one of the first studies, that really clued me in that there's going to be problems here with the data that's coming in. That's going to be contradicting some other data, and it's going to be a breeding ground for conspiracy theories. And unfortunately, it has. The right has, a lot of people on the right have jumped onto. There was a big government conspiracy and a plan to shut down the economy, right, and get unelected from office because people were angry. Yeah, what a stupid conspiracy theory that is, right? And of course, there's, now there's the other parts, the origin. Did it come from a Chinese lab, right? Did it come from America, right? Those are open-ended questions, right? But COVID happened, plain and simple, right? And if you had family members die from it, you would know that. Alex Jankerson, Mr. Jankinson is in the house. Is it that time of the let's do it. Let's get some epic music playing. What's gonna play it? Certainly not playing for me. Oh, it's cinematic. Could be my headphones. Oh, here we go. It's working. Okay, here we go. Let's get serious. COVID-19 was a pandemic that spread around the world in 2020 and 2021. Governments spent money so people could stay at home. Neoliberals said it caused inflation. Progressives said no. Supply was cut short around the world. Prices went up. When that supply was unrestricted, prices went down. Neoliberals said no. Central banks raised rates, crushing inflation. The debate goes on. We're now in 2025, and the debate rages more and more, and we still have no answers. We have conspiracies. We have tin hat wearing motherfuckers, and we still don't know what's going on. Gonna have too much fun with that. Woo! We're gonna have way too much fun with that music. One theory is that the lockdowns were enforced loosely and indirectly by I don't even know what that word is, or powerful old people. Society is shaped by old people very much these days. Well, isn't that Blue Bay's in the house? Blue Bay, isn't that always the case? One theory is that lockdowns were enforced loosely. So here's the thesis of my model, is that the waves weren't caused by the different variants that came out. It was the lockdown, the off and on lockdown between each wave. So, and I could model it perfectly in my model. Like it perfectly matched each cycle of the virus. So I had found coefficients for the effectiveness of each lockdown measure. So, and this was specifically for BC. So I was just dealing with 3 million people, right? And so I found out the locking. So what does masking do if people actually apply it, right, and wear a mask? What is social distancing doing? What did it do? What happened when we shut down schools in March, right? What happens when we shut down the sports league, right? And I tracked all those things, right? And then I tracked when those policies went on and off, right? And then that's how I showed the waves. So it was a on and off cycle. And what other function I had in is people became resistant to policy. They got tired of it. We all got tired of it. We didn't like it. It wasn't fun. I liked watching hockey with people in the stands. Okay, I liked it. I was pissed. I didn't like it. I didn't. Sports was boring without people in the stands. But I also knew we're trying to stop the spread of the infection. What the key problem was hospitals were getting overwhelmed, right? That was the big issue, right? Because my wife is a nurse, right? I'm keenly aware of the complications that caused for hospitals, right? And so meanwhile, you might have a person with a heart attack, your hospital is overwhelmed with people in the ICU on ventilators, right? So that was what lockdowns were for. Vaccinations, like any reasonable person knew that this wasn't actually preventing you getting infected with COVID-19. I know the media hyped it up that way. It was preventing you from extreme sickness so you wouldn't end up in the hospital, right? And that's where the dangerous logistical issue really got involved. And so that was the big issue is, can we manage through the pandemic so logistically the systems of healthcare that we employ in our countries didn't become overwhelmed, right? And so we developed these methods, right? We developed a vaccine so that if you got COVID, it wouldn't be an extreme form of it, right? You wouldn't have serious complications that you ended up in the hospital. You could still get COVID, and your symptoms might have been diminished to a great degree. You might not even knowing you had it, right? And that was the whole point, right, of the vaccine. Of course, conspiracy theories developed around that. Well, people are still getting infected. We've got this vaccine, right? They didn't understand what that vaccine was doing. It was really, we were looking at it from a systematic perspective. And this is why it cried for system dynamic modeling. And of course, pandemic modeling, and they call it compartmental modeling. So you've got different cohorts of people in different compartments in different stocks, and they will move through it depending on the infection rate. And that's what pandemic modeling is. What else do we got here? You guys like the let's do it again. Let's do it again. Epic. This week on the Relearning Economics live stream, we were supposed to talk about trade and production possibility frontiers, but we got off track. We got into a new topic, COVID-19. We still talk about it to this day. We still don't have all the answers. How can you keep your family safe in a time of need? Stay tuned for more information. This is Ty Keynes signing off from this music. I love it. I love it. I still don't have my soundboard for what? Still don't have that. What else we got going on here? Frank. I was a first responder during COVID-19 responding to nursing homes. It was definitely real, and the initial strain was extremely lethal, and not just to the elderly and the unhealthy. Exactly. There's another example, right, where we're trying to maintain our systems that we have in a modern society, right? So in order to do that, we use public policy, which is basically separating people through various, policy measures. And that bred, of course, conspiracy theories. But let's face it, no government wants to shut down their economy. Like nobody, no politician wants to do that. There's no like conspiracy. It was, this happens. We go through pandemics. The last major one obviously was, 1918, the Spanish flu, right? So these things are going to come up. Some scientists, of course, postulate that these could become more recurrent over time, right, with global warming, right, and the spread of civilization into new areas of the wilderness where we could be exposed to a virus that is in animals that could, jump into humans. So there's that possibility, of course. But you raise a good point. Blue Bay, glad you're here. Good to see you. Why is hockey brilliant when so many players lose their teeth? Well, that's the important thing, right? It's violent. It's violent. That's a great. It's the fastest sport on earth. Okay, there's nothing faster. You watch a soccer game and it's slow as hell, or football, as you Europeans call it. Slow as hell. It's boring. After you watch a hockey game, you go to watch a football game or a soccer game, slow as hell. And the soccer player, they flop on the ground when they get touched and they grab their knee. It's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing to watch. It's cringeworthy. So there's that speed. The intensity is way more than like American football, right? You are hitting people, you are on skates, and you are traveling fast. You have fights. People, so to reduce the rage, because it's a very competitive sport, so we allow fighting. It's like a mini boxing match. Just incredibly entertaining. And the skill to be on thin little skates moving at extreme speeds and control a puck with a stick and do the amazing things they do. There's no more exciting sport than hockey. It's incredible. Yeah, there has never been a proper vaccine against coronavirus. We have non-sterilizing vaccines, i.e., that don't provide ongoing immunity. So no vaccine is great. Best thing is to avoid getting. Absolutely, right? That is the best thing. The vaccine, again, its only purpose was to try to prevent extreme sickness, so hospitals wouldn't get overwhelmed during, the heights of the pandemic. And I think that was very effective, right? You saw like, so when I was going back to my thesis about the waves were caused by on and off lockdown measures, we saw that still happen, but we saw the hospitalizations really drop over time. So extreme sicknesses, could have been a combination of the variants that came out. So basically viruses do really well at not killing the host, because you want the host. This is why we don't have global Ebola outbreaks, because they kill the host too fast. It doesn't spread. But a virus that really wants to survive doesn't want to kill the host. It wants the host to at least survive so it can pass it on to the next person, right? So there could have been a combination of that. So the variants became, less intrusive to the human body over time, and a combination of the vaccines reducing the complications to a COVID-19 infection. Hey, Ty, thank you for critiquing that video. I learned is it something new today? Not sometimes new today, but I may have it wrong just as well. Permit me to summarize economics in that video. Sure, summarize, please. Permit me to summarize what I think was the critique. Yes, please do that. Alex, Mr. Jenkinson. Hey, guys, ever watch The Matrix? Mr. Anderson, I'm going to enjoy ending you. Mr. Anderson, I hate this place. It stinks. All the humans, it's filthy. I can't wait to get out of this place. I love that movie. And Mr. Anderson, what a great actor he was. The best vaccine is the human immune system. Nothing beats it. It's true. It's true. Huge, true. I'm starting to look like the orange man. Oops. Yeah, that's true. Nobody's going to deny that, right? That and so with my wife, I've had arguments. So like hand washing, right? If there's studies that say that hand washing actually can be problematic for children, right? Because they're not developing their immune system. Um, and it's a tough noodle to crack because we live in this integrated, institutionalized system where we send children to school. So one children, yeah, sure, they have developed a good immune system. But if you send that child to school and maybe they have something, and a child that doesn't have a good immune system catches it and they die, that becomes problematic. Like, what do you do in that situation, right? So that's like the balancing of society, and right, you can be on one side of the equation or the other side of the equation, and nobody's ever going to agree. The creepy Matrix dude, yeah, Agent Smith, Mr. Anderson. I'm going to enjoy watching you die. Mr. Anderson. I love it when he says that. Anyway, so where am I getting? Oh, yeah. Alex's name. Mr. Jenkinson. I'm going to enjoy watching you get COVID-19. I'm just kidding, Alex. I don't want you to get COVID-19. Just working on my acting skills. AK's in the house from X. Remember, if you're on X, you can come over to my YouTube channel at Relearning Econ and chat here with, there's generally more people chatting here. The problem with COVID was that it has a wide variance in mortality and was just deadly enough to cause large uncertainty. And I agree. This is something that I don't know if you were around earlier. But that uncertainty bred conspiracy theories, right? So in the beginning, we didn't know. It was quite alarming. Like, was this like at the level of Ebola, right? And yet it was spreading around the world, right? We didn't know, right? And so there was that uncertainty, right? And so in the heat of the moment, you don't have peer-reviewed papers to really manage public policy. So a lot of it, you're going off instinct, public perception of the moment, right? So it was very difficult. I sympathize with government officials, health officials during that time, because we didn't have the peer-reviewed data to make really good informed decisions. So we had to react on the side of public safety, right? To keep as many people safe as possible. Like that's what you hope if you live in a country, like your government is going to at least do that during a crisis, right? And of course, after the fact with retrospect thinking, obviously you can come to different conclusions. Viruses like Ebola are too deadly, and viruses like seasonal flu aren't deadly enough. COVID was between those extremes. Yeah, and that's kind of like what I was bringing up. Ebola is so deadly that you can't really have, well, knock on wood, you can't really have a global pandemic of Ebola because it kills off the hosts, right? So there could be a mutation of Ebola where it allows people to live. Could be a really shitty sickness that you have. Whereas something like COVID-19, like you said, it's in between the flu and Ebola. It's able to spread worldwide. The symptoms suck, but you're going to live, right? And it's noticeable. So, there's it's in the news, right? Hey, Ty, who is the person you admire most, either in the past or current world? Jay Forrester. Jay Forrester is he's dead now, but he's foundational to the way I model the world. So pandemics, economics, right? He's system dynamics, right? Another person is Bill Phillips. I know he's famous for the Phillips curve, which was bastardized by conventional economists that say there's a trade-off between, employment and prices. But if you read his original paper, it's far more nuanced. But what he created was the Moniac machine. So it was like the monetary analog. It was basically, I can't remember the acronym, but it was basically a bunch of pipes and it's a nonlinear system. Now, I didn't believe the assumptions in it, but it was like our first dynamic working model of a national economy. So he's up there. Um, so he's kind of in my top 5. Who else would be in my top 5? John Maynard Keynes, just because he's the father of macroeconomics. Now, there's a lot of things I don't agree with him now, but I think I don't agree with some of the things now because we live in a different world now, right? So he's up there for me. Hyman Minsky, not very good at math, but he recognized financial instability, right? That instability is part of the system, right? So he's pretty big. Richard Goodwin. Now, a lot of people don't know Richard Goodwin, but he was a mathematician that applied it to economics, and he applied nonlinear chaotic systems to economics. So none of these people are above Jay Forster. Obviously, Steve Keen is one of them. Wynne Godley is another individual that I admire for his work on stock flow consistent modeling. Now, stock flow consistent modeling, that's just identities, right? So it's just like dimensionally consistent modeling. Like you got to add the dynamics after that. Now, he did a textbook with Mark Lavoie, famous post-Keynesian from Canada. But it was all kind of like discrete time modeling. So I didn't like that, but I like the stock flow aspect of those things. Obviously, Joan Robertson. She's, the person that really carried on the Keynesian torch, right? Truest to Keynes' original work. Mikhail Kalecki, who is a contemporary of Keynes, and a lot of people say he came up with some ideas before Keynes, but after he lived much longer than Keynes, so a lot of people considered him a post-Keynesian. So he's up there as one of my favorites. New people that are alive, like Steve Keen, Michael Hudson. Who else would be? He's passed away 5 years ago. In fact, today is his anniversary of his death. David Graeber. He's another big influence of mine. Who else would be out there that I think is pretty I think that's covering a lot of them. A lot of other people in the complex system world. So Jorgen Randers, Daniela Meadows, her husband, Dennis Meadows. They were the authors to The Limits of Growth. So they're really into the system dynamic community. But the buddy guy I do a live stream with every Friday, Mike Radzicki, he's up there, like really smart guy. These are the people, so they're not all economists, right? A lot of them are like system engineers, right? So I try not to get drugged down too much in ideology. I'm very inductive. Like I'm driven by the data, right? And how can you model that data properly? So those are my favorites. I don't know if that was a sufficient enough list for you or not. Mr. Jenkinson. With viruses, I'm a gambler. I prefer just to get infected, take my chances, and then move on with things. Well, yeah, personal preference. The thing is, if you're catching it and you become a super spreader, right? If you spread it to other people. So sure, catch it, but you should probably stay away from other people. Just like if you have a cold or something, maybe try not to spread it. Try to be good. Try to be a good human. How about James Beckman? Can't even say the name. He was a nice bridge between libertarian thinking and the necessity of state. Not super familiar with him. So that's like I was just saying, it kind of gets into the ideology and your political. Like some things I'm very right and some things I'm very left, some things I'm in the center, like my own personal opinion, but I'm like into systems thinking and systems modeling using system dynamics, which physics and engineers have used for ages now. That's kind of, so what is the system? What is the system, right? How does it behave? What are the emergence properties, right? What are the policy levers that we can utilize in that system. And obviously in economics on a macro level, you have fiscal policy. So, what is the government any good? Is the state, efficient when it spends, right? You have monetary policy and the tools of monetary policy. Are those efficient? And how do those different policies work in different time periods and through time, right? And what are the emergent properties that come out of that? Right. So that's like a lot of those people in that list I gave, if they weren't directly involved in that sort of thinking, they were thinking that way indirectly. Right. And so that's where my interest comes from. But when it comes to the oughts, what ought to be, because that's their belief, that's where I kind of step away. And it's not to say that there aren't smart people like Ludwig von Mises. He's a great read, and I don't agree with a lot of his takes, but he is a great read. He's actually easier to read than Keynes. So, like, not to say that those people that have those opinions aren't really smart people. It's just not my interest per se. That's all. And I'll put up my own post. I got automatic things that go in the chat. Check out my website to see all my current projects I'm working on at www.relearningeconomics.com. Oh, these streams are fun. What else we got here? Well, we do have this. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Oh no, that's the like button. Hit that pink button. Pink on here, black or white on red or on the platform. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. It's looking at the statistics. Not enough people are hitting the notification bell. I can see, which viewers. I can't see the specific viewer, but I get an aggregation of which one has hit the notification bell. So hit that notification bell. Comment after the video. I know a lot of people in the chat, you guys do that automatically now. Helps with the algorithm. Try to get this channel going, the age-old battle. I did that with my Twitter X last year, and it blew it up. So I'm gonna do it this year with this YouTube channel. Let's see. Let's actually turn off this thing. Let's turn on this one. Let's turn on some music. How about some like nice acoustic? Let's have love and joy in your hearts. Let it flow through your brain. Deep breaths. Om. Namaste. Oh, dog's going wild. I have this zapper. Hold on, Marty. Quick, come here. Come here. Usually it's a zapper, and it's got like a buzz collar that goes around my neck. His neck, not my neck. His neck. Come here. Quiet you. Quiet. I'm trying to live stream. Burn-a-doodle. Big guy. You're a big guy. Yes, you are. You're a big guy. You stink. You stink. Yeah, you stink. You want to say hi? What's this? Hey, what's this? Come here. What's this? There you go. There you are. Almost on camera. Anyways, I have this collar goes around his neck. It's got a beeper, a buzzer, and then a shocker. I didn't put that on him before the stream, so if he goes nuts, then you guys will hear him. That could be problematic. Problematic for a professional stream. Only 4 likes. Yeah. So like when I look at it, so I get like anywhere after the fact, I get 200 to 400 views. Most of the views come after, right? So I don't know like how this will eventually translate. Like I'd like to do long form videos, and I'm working on a course, a workshop for my Patreon members. And it'll be 8 modules long. And people can learn system dynamics. So any long form work that I do, I'm not going to put on YouTube. That's the thing. So I just use it. And I've noticed like we have not peaked Like if I look right now, like on YouTube, it's been hanging around 10 viewers. And if I look on X, so this hasn't been a very fruitful stream this time around. Look at the statistics. And it doesn't show a live viewers, so I have to wait till after it's done running, but it's probably like 10 people on X, so it's only like 20 people today. So it's not like when Steve, we did well, we were at around 50 people combined on X and on YouTube. But yeah, make sure you hit the frickin' like button. Like, come on. And yeah, it does update slowly. So let me look at what mine is saying. Like I can look in my analytics. Just takes me a second to get there. But we're good. I'm almost at the 1,500 watch hours over a month and a half period, and I need 3,000. So then we get to the monetization stage, and then there's this new hype feature that people can hype a video, so I can employ that. People can send their super chats to me if they want. Just looking. I'll go to my live version. I'm seeing myself. I gotta pause myself or mute myself. I can hear myself. It's embarrassing. It's only saying so. I got 9 likes. That's what I'm seeing. Is what it is, I guess. You know. Oh, and so I'm looking beside the chat, and everybody has like a number beside their name. So I see everybody's chat from like if I'm on X. I might put this on LinkedIn too, but I can see like so Dr. T, you've got a crown. You're number 1. I've got Alex. You're number 3. Good for you guys. You got crowns beside your name. Blue Bay, you don't have anything beside your name. That's unfortunate. Same with Rob. You don't have anything beside your name. Oh well. Anyways, I digress here. What else is in the chat? We are all only here for the great RGB in the background. Okay, hold on. Let me take the chat down. This thing, now, Doug said it pissed him off to see this flash. Okay, but I always thought because it was smooth the way because on camera, so I have like a pretty good cam, right? And I put what's called a LUT in it. So it's kind of color grading. And then I have 3 big lights. So I've got a key light in front of me. I've got a side light that gives that like yellow sun look, like there's a window right here. And then I've got a hair light above me, which is like a white light. And it just kind of highlights the hair on top of me. And then it's a cold light that gives like lights my face. And I got a thing down here somewhere. That big light kind of highlights the wall behind me. And then this thing does things. So it can just be a normal bright light, and you can change it to a cool color or an orangey like yellow color. And you can dim it and do all that. Then you can also go through the colors. So I can have that color. I could have these static colors. And I did these for some of my pre-thumbnails. You know, you go that. Got that color. And it's bright too. If you look at it right in your eyes, it's like super bright. That's green. It's light green on the camera, but more dark green for me. Blue. Anyway, so you get the point. And then it has like different flat. Now I apparently can hook up like music to it, and it goes with the beat. So that's kind of cool. So if I could hook up this like playlist that I have here for background music, that would be pretty cool. So I got that one. And maybe you guys can decide. Maybe this one's better than the one I use. I just like it so it's kind of always lit up because I don't like the dark soundboard. Like, so I try to light it up and highlight it. So I got that one. What else do we have? We've got this one. I just find this one a little bit too janky. I I want a crown. Well, I think you just got to chat and comment more. And two, like, there's a list in my analytics of like, I should be on the Stephen Keen and Friends show. We used to do like top chatters list and all that. And that shit, we got so many viewers on that chat. We'd have like 100, 150 chatters at one time. Yeah, I miss it. It was good time. So, got that one. Then there's this one. And it's just like, it would be like, is your light broken? That's what people would think, right? What do we got next? Then there's this one. That's kind of cool. I like that. You like the green. Yeah, I could just like go with one solid color. What's going on here? Okay, so this one's just going to flash through all the lights. What do you guys think about this one? Yeah. Okay, here's this one. So these could go to like the beats of the like music and stuff. I think that one's too distracting when it's flashing like that. Same with these ones, like just kind of flashing out of the blue. I don't know. You hitting on me? Because Taya is nice looking. Oh, yeah. I wish my wife would say that to me. And that's the one I go with because I just like that one's really going crazy. Yeah, I just like how it like slides up and down. I kind of like it. Maybe I should put a poll up. My last poll on YouTube kind of failed miserably. Because I asked a question, I said, is something good or bad? And then I was like, I put yes or no, and it didn't define. Screwed up on that poll. I don't know if you guys saw that. People were still answering it though, but I don't know what the results of the poll are because I don't know what the yes or no was supposed to mean. Pretty terrible, but maybe I should do a poll on this light to see. But this thing it's like $150, like to get a good one to light it up, right? And then the lighting, yeah, and so then all these, then they're big soft boxes, right? So they've got like sheets that cover them, and there's a light in the middle, and then on the back, the umbrella, it's like an umbrella. The inside of it's all reflective, so it's like it spreads the light out, but it doesn't put like an intense shine anywhere on your forehead. I spent a lot of time doing that last year. I don't know why. Thought I wanted to look good, got a better. So like live streams generally want a webcam, not an actual camera, because then you need a memory card and you're doing it fly. It can be a little tough. So I got a good webcam that can go into 4K, but it's basically impossible to live stream in 4K. It's way too much information for people and YouTube. So I do 1080p. Just so it's clear, right? So it doesn't look like a shit ass webcam. And this webcam, I can set it. It's got AI tracking, so I can move around, and it'll do shit, right? Usually, if I put my hand up like that, no, I've got that turned off. But it can do those things. I like the current version. Voice activation one is distracting. Which one was the current version? Because I went derail. No. We're kind of like we're in the like the 75% mark time in this live stream. We're derailing it every time. Like this is where I should like just break out a video game and turn this into a gaming stream, right? This part of the time we already the first like 40 minutes covered the economic part, and then we got into what was it, COVID? We got into COVID, and now we're into lighting. Mr. Jenkinson. But no, I don't know which current one it was. Like I could just do something simple. Just, oh, the one I have now. Yeah, I like that too. I like that too because it adds a little bit of dynamism to my. I gotta pick the right one here. Lost it. Oh, that's not it. That's not it. That's it. There we go. Yeah, I like that one because it's just kind of, it makes a dynamic background. I might get one day if I had two. It'd be nice, but the things are so damn expensive. Always soaking me from my money. Likes the one I have now. What do we need to talk about economics for, anyways? Other than this is an economic live stream. I put out, so I released my thesis on share buybacks. So I did it for a week. It was paid only on my Patreon, and then yesterday I think it went live free on my Patreon, and then I put an article out on it on my X. People still missing the point that I'm not coming from an ideological like standpoint, right? And what's good and what's bad? Is capitalism good or is capitalism bad? That's what it comes down to. I'm just saying, like, when you're done using somebody's capital, you don't need them on as a shareholder anymore. And those shareholders, they want a return, right? And if it's a buyout and they get a capital gain, great. They're going to go invest in another IPO, right? It's a circulation of capital. So I did that. Always, that's a tough noodle to crack, especially for my progressive followers, right? And just trying to say it is just a normal function of capitalism. So that's going on. Any meaning behind the tattoos? Oh, I'm a gangster. Mr. Jenkinson is my underboss. I'm a gangster of economics. And this says gangster economist. I just got them through time. You know, some are like family member names. I got one on my back, you know, one on another part, and I don't know, just got them like look nice. Try not to get those tribal tattoos though, like that everybody has, like the wrap around their arm and stuff. I try not to do that. Random chat can build a community. It does. This is the best time. Like, you'll look at the chat like graph and it just kind of goes up. The longer we get away from economics, so understanding economics is just a toolbox. You can achieve any goal you want to, but you don't have to be stuck in one ideology. Correct. You can see from many different viewpoints. That's what I always try to achieve myself, right? Sometimes that lands me in hot water with one group of people, and then the next week I got another viewpoint that lands me in hot water with a group of people that were okay with me before. But you just got to make up your own damn mind. Really, if I'm 41 now, so I'm at the age where nobody listens to me. Right? I'm not old enough to be a wise old man. I'm not young enough where I cry about something, you know, some adult will come in and save me. So I'm at the age where nobody's fucking listening to me anyways. But if people were listening to me and they wanted to listen to some words of wisdom, I would say make up your own damn mind and use your own damn brain, right? And you kind of just put it there, economics, and this can apply not just to economics, but it's a toolbox, right? So use your toolbox that you have, right? And make up your own damn mind. That would be my advice. Don't listen to me. Like, listen to me, but then go use your toolbox to make up your own damn mind on a topic, right? That's what I would suggest. That would be my words of wisdom. So when I'm old, I'm talking like this, and I'm about to die on my deathbed, I'll tell all those youngins, make up your own damn mind. Something like that. Frank, it's not about ideology. It's about actuality. Woo, this is getting deep. The difference between, tell me what the difference between ideology and actuality is, right? Like, so conceptually, right? Your hardened cult-like ideology, or, the way you view the world, the actual world that you interpret. I'd hear more about that, Frank. That's interesting. I'm in my early 50s, too old to go back to Fortran or learn Python. I just learned Python last year, to be honest. It's a really elegant language, coding language to pick up. I like it. So I saw Richard Murphy post something today, or was it last night, about MMT, comparing him to Keynes. But I didn't watch it. Richard Murphy had a video today where at one point he said interest policy takes 2 years to do anything. But on that model you showed Sunday, was that the case? It depends on the point of the business cycle. So one policy doesn't work at the same in different points of time when the system states are at different points, right? So interest rate policy in my model could take up to 2 years, depending on the other conditions of the hundreds of variables. And other situations, it can be quite instantaneous, right? Because in that case, the cost structure for firms is very important in that point of the business cycle. So what's depressing, one of the big depressants of rising interest rates, it's a cost. So firms are paying rates of that's a cost, lowers profits. Profits get lower. Firms invest less capital stock, less output, less employment. So that can, like in those situations where firms are very cost sensitive, interest rate changes can have very instantaneous effects. But then you have to also look at points in time where companies on what's called forward contracts. So, a lot of their costs are set to some forward point in time. And then you can have lags in the system. But I will tell you, anybody that says, and I heard this from that Hearns guy, John Hearns, he's always got these rigid 18 months before you see the effects of inflation or the effects of interest rates. Systems are dynamic. One policy lever works differently in one point in time than another point in time. Case in example, productivity shocks. Productivity shocks are detrimental to employment when firms are in the business cycle, where they have a large share of the national income. And the other point of the cycle, and so when firms have a large share of the national, it's usually at the bottom, like in a recession or the trough. The other point, when wage holders, when they go up and their share of income goes up, and there's a productivity shock, a positive one, it's good for employment. You get two different results in a nonlinear system. With productivity shocks, and it's quite fascinating to look at that. That's why you got to include time. And in fact, I think I need to bring that up. So let me just bring that up, and I'll show. I think I have a quick, easy, like Goodwin model I can just show, and might be able to show that effect. And so I'll bring up my screen. I'll take your comment down. We'll share screen. We will share entire screen. Now, hopefully everybody can see sharing. So anyway, so you got your Goodwin growth cycle model. All right, and this is a very basic model. This is by no means the national economy. We saw my national model. It's much bigger. But for the purpose of this exercise, we can look at making a limit kind of cycle graph. I think I can do this. And we'll take the wage bill, maybe. And we'll take profits. I'm just going to see if I can make a limit cycle here. Just measured on two separate axes. it's not ideally circular. So basically, you're seeing the inverse relationship of, so at one point, capitalists have the majority of income, and then at another point, wage earners have a bigger share. So this is the wage axis down here, and this is the profit axis here. So right now, the wage earners are doing really well, and the profit not so well for profits, the negative profits in the system. And then, if you advance this model, you can kind of see it go through. But anyways, we can change productivity. So we have a constant level of productivity in the system. We'll bring this back down here. And we'll just see how this behaves. So we'll run the model. We'll run it slowly. Now let's just see how many cycles this goes through. 1, 2, 2.5. That's not long enough for our demonstration. So we can go into our simulation and we can run for 1,000 years. Now this will just run for a long time. So we can slow this down, right? And we can introduce productivity shocks. So this is our limit cycle. Let's say we introduce a productivity shock. And I'm going to have to change. Oh, we can go down, I think. Let's see what happens here. Go down. Oh, that's 0. It's either 0 or 1 for productivity. We need to change where we can go from. So we can say a min of 0 and a maximum of 10. And we can have steps of 0.1, let's say. Okay. So we have positive productivity shock, negative product, and we'll do a positive one. And we'll do it when workers have the advantage, which is right about now. See what just happened there? I hit the shock. And now look at workers earn way more. And capitalists actually didn't gain much. They gained a little bit on that side, made the cycle, and then I reduced the cycle. And look at what happens in a nonlinear system. You'd expect it would return back to its normal path, but now the system's become unstable, right? And you're doing these at different. Now I'll introduce a positive productivity shock when capitalists have the advantage, right about here. And look what it does now. Then I'll reduce it right at the same time as the last cycle. So what I'm trying to show is that in a nonlinear system, a policy change will have drastically different effects depending on the time that you're in. We'll just close that down. And so that's why where I wouldn't agree with Richard Murphy that there's some fixed time where interest rates take a certain amount, and the data doesn't support that at all. So when you model these things in a nonlinear system, you realize, okay, when these policies are implemented, that really matters, right? That the temporality of the system matters most, right? And this is what it's not in economics. Like you have discrete time periods, but that's not time itself. So in modeling, in general equilibrium modeling, the shock shocks you to the next time period, and it's optimized to go to some sort of equilibrium. And nonlinear dynamic modeling, what I was just showing, is not optimized like that, and it's continuous time. So very, very small discrete chunks, right? And when you introduce a policy into a nonlinear system, you will find that that policy creates emergent properties that are different depending on what time you implement them, right? So that's a long-winded answer to say that I like Richard Murphy. I've had live streams with him. He's a great guy. And I'd have to listen to his video. to give a proper response, obviously. So that's my answer. Let's go back to where we were. Where was that Richard comment? I don't know where it was, but anyways, governments. Okay, there you are, Jenkinson, Mr. Jenkinson. So that's my answer to the question. I hope that provided some insights to everybody. Frank, banks lend out deposit ideology versus loans create deposits, actually. Yeah, correct. And there's, of course, a huge nuance in that as well. You know, what's the role of settlement balances after that? How do banks settle after they create the money? So there's those nuances. Dr. T. Just wanted to thank you, Ty, for engaging with our BS as well as proper micro stuff. I hope it all moves your work forward. Well, it has. Like I can't believe, that my Patreon, so I have different streams of income, and its share is getting bigger and bigger. And I'm so grateful. So grateful I met Steve Keen, 4 years ago. And I've kind of been able to take the plight of, critiquing conventional economics and then helping provide an alternative. And just in, I finished writing my book. So my new book will be called Relearning Economics, The Principal Myths of Conventional Macroeconomics. Doing some final edits on it, but it will be out. So my Patreon, some levels of my Patreoneers will get a PDF copy, but it'll be on Amazon. So like a soft cover copy, maybe a hardcover, but obviously the costs go up for hardcovers. But that is done. I've 2 years writing that. And the thing is, I'm not a good writer, right? I struggle writing blogs. I really have to take a lot of time, get my wife to proofread them, right? Like line edit them, so they actually make sense and make a cohesive story. But somewhere along the line, I realized that it didn't need to be technical. I didn't need to be John Maynard Keynes, right? I just needed to tell my story, my experience of what I am seeing, right? And I think who was saying about the toolbox, use my toolbox, right? And tell the narratives. And it really started becoming easy to write this book, because I just realized I had to tell my side of the story. And I was always fearful in sciences that, just doing that's a fiction, right? But a book isn't necessarily an academic paper, although it will be factual, right? I'm driven by inductive reasoning. But anyways, so that'll be out soon. Just putting the final touches on things. So that's cool. What else we got here? Thanks, Blue Bay. Long time coming. 10 years to write my book. So stick with it. Yeah. Well, I'm planning a second one now. I've got an idea. Got ideas, right? Anyways, that's kind of, books because we got YouTube now, right? Everybody can be a commentator, right? We've got social media. Everybody can be a commentator. But I still feel like a book can be part of your legacy, right? That can never go away. Like it's doesn't necessarily have to be, your manifesto. But it can construct your legacy that just never goes away. So I'm happy it's there. Holy shit, we're almost at 2 hours. Jesus. There's still some people here. I got 10 people, 8 people on X and 9 people here. People are still listening to me yap. What do we got this coming Friday? Steve apparently is away. And so I was going to have Dave Fawkes, you remember him from Fridays. We're going to talk about his first chapter in his book. And I know Mike Radzicki will come in. So we got that going on. I don't know if Steve's going to be there. He will be for the following week. So we got that going on. That's in Alex. What do you got here? I haven't written a book, but I did a nice article on Richard Cantillon on my work bulletin board. Got a few interesting reactions. Well, good. Do more of that. I always encourage people on X, usually they're trying to troll me. I'm like, okay, well, where's your article? Like, give me a long form article instead of just trolling me. I get a lot of "you're wrong," and that's it. It's like, whoa. You should look at I get thousands of replies a month, and I just can't get to them all, and I get discouraged but anyways, Alex, you keep doing that. Maybe you should open up like a journal or something, right? And just start cataloging your articles, because maybe it becomes a series of essays and a book in itself, right? You should do that, right? And then maybe get a social. I don't know if you're on X or anything. Are you on X, Alex? Maybe just start putting it out there, right? Because people are interested. If you got something interesting to say, a take that nobody expects, that can be interesting. I encourage you to do that. That'd be awesome if I saw you. You got X? Do you follow me on X? Do I follow you? I find a lot of people have different names on YouTube and X. So, and then they got their government LinkedIn account. God, LinkedIn. I got my LinkedIn, but I just don't use it because it's just trash. Boring too. And everybody's got their AI generated comments. They post it's like a 280 character comment, and it's just generic, right? And it's about their work or how many letters they got in their name. Just a waste of time. I just don't play in that realm. Anyways, write those articles, put them somewhere. And it's almost like therapy. So if you're interested in topic, and then you can just write about it, just yap about it, but in writing form. This is kind of what this is for me. Like, guys, I gotta admit, there's a sense of release doing a live stream and just yapping for a few hours. So I encourage anybody out there, if that's your thing, do it, because it's good therapy, self-therapy. Anyways, we're getting to the end. Let's just do, gotta hit that like button. Oh, geez. That one. Hit that one. Subscribe, notifications, and comment. Comment underneath the video. I think we should close it out with music. So let's see what we got here. Cinematic, epic. Let's do epic. I like the epic. Don't like that one. Next time on the live stream, we're going to talk about more economics. It'll blow your mind. Most economists say the lines just converge to a flat line, equilibrium. Imagine if a heart monitor went into equilibrium. The patient would die. That's what economists want for the economy. But I'm here to tell you there's another way, and we're going to discover it together next time on the live stream. I'm Ty Keens, signing out. Bye-bye. Bye, guys.
You are now relearning economics.